my opinion, on the planet Earth is streamed live on flowracing.com. The coolest part, in my opinion, well, I guess other than being able to watch live drag racing 24/7, you can watch on any device, whether you want to watch on your phone, your tablet, you want to watch Roku, Apple, whatever you want to use. You can watch live drag racing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week via our partners at flowracing.com. And I want to say this kind of I try to make these sponsorship situations a little bit personal and as authentic of an endorsement as I can provide. Please recognize Flow Racing is doing something significant for the sport of drag racing. This is important. The partnerships that Flow Racing has performed with the promoters that I just mentioned and many others, they are difference makers. These are people that are doing their part to grow and build the sport of drag racing, which is a mission that's near and dear my heart. They're putting money in the hands of, in the pockets of promoters. They're putting drag racing and drag racers in front of a worldwide audience. It can only behoove us the success of Flow Racing. I encourage you, please, by all means, join the movement. Be part of the action. Log on to flowracing.com. Join. $150 a year is a small price to pay to not only support the sport of drag racing, put our sport in front of as many people as humanly possible, but really grow and be a part of a movement. They are changing the game out here, and I tip my cap to them, and I really appreciate them being a part of the Wes Buck Show and Drag Illustrated magazine. So our first guest today, in my opinion, is something of a Pro Mod legend. For about as long as people have been paying attention to Pro Mod, this North Carolina native has been a part of the conversation. His support for Fast Door Slammer racing has never wavered, and that level of commitment has provided a front row seat to a brand of drag racing that is seemingly ever-changing. Ladies and gentlemen, the newly crowned NMCA Extreme Pro Mod World Champion. Let's give it up for Chip King. Woo, Mike, Woo. JT, clap, everybody.
There we go. What's up, Chip?
Chip looks good, man. Who set this camera up? You look really good.
You wouldn't believe the amount of duct tape it took to get this all set up. My wife, thanks to her.
Oh, it's fantastic, man. Thank you for being here, dude. I've told everybody, throughout the beginning of the show that my buddy Chip King's a relatively soft-spoken guy. He doesn't get super revved up, but I am of the opinion that you're an extremely well-spoken racer with a ton of insight and opinion. And I guess it's well established that you just scored your first world championship with the NMCA, an incredible accomplishment. But I'm just curious if you could kind of walk our listeners through and us how you arrived at joining the NMCA Extreme Pro Mod ranks. For what it's worth, you've been a part of almost, I believe, every single NHRA Pro Mod drag race they ever had prior to 2021. You were always there. What pushed you towards the NMCA, Chip?
Well, at the just before the end of the 2020 season, we were testing for the U.S. Nationals and lost our primary NHRA car, and we had a backup, but I had didn't really get injured there, but I had a couple of injuries a couple of weeks later from a dump truck of all things. But I had to get all that fixed, so went through some surgeries and got my spine straightened out and got where I could drive again. And we had purchased the Terry Liggett Mustang, and it was really a good 8th mile car, and we considered making it a 1/4 mile car, and team and I decided let's go for an 8th mile championship and take our time getting a new 1/4 mile car together.
Do you what do you we talked about this earlier in the week, Chip. I believe the NMCA, Steve Walcott, Raleigh Miller, Mike Galemi, that whole crew, in my opinion, I don't know that the NMCA, the National Muscle Car Association, really gets their due. I don't know why that is necessarily, but they are, in my opinion, without question, I think drag racing's number 2 sanctioning body, right? I mean, I think it's well known that the NHRA is the tip of the sword, if you will, but the NMCA, their consistency, their rules, their attention to detail, the way they put on their events, the way they're scheduled, the way they're handled. I mean, you can ask a lot of racers who have dipped their toes into the NMCA waters, that they run a tight ship over there. How impressed have you been, your first full season over there with the operation of the National Muscle Car Association, Chip?
Oh, I'm very highly impressed. I spent, like you mentioned, a career at NHRA, and I still love the NHRA, but NMCA has just really got their act together. They treat the racers with so much respect, and they make sure you really feel like you're wanted there, and they keep the track prep is just Kurt Johnson and his team just keep the track prep the same every single time, and that just gives you such a confidence builder, especially when you're trying to run and stay up front. That you're gonna have a pretty much on time sessions, and you're gonna know when your sessions are. They keep you well informed, and when you get up there, they're ready to run you, and the track is ready for you. So it's been a great
What do you,
experience.
after all these years of racing? I mean, you talked about some accidents. God knows you've fought the good fight to stay out there at a high level for all these years. Fielded a bunch of different combinations. Always known as a Mopar guy. I know that I'm sure there are some hardcore Chip King fans out there that struggle to sleep at night seeing you in a red Ford Mustang. But when you look at the gamut that you've been through, all that you've accomplished out here, and how long you've been a part of the sport, how much did that championship mean to you, and how excited are you, I'm assuming in 2022, to go defend your title and wear that number 1 on your windshield?
Oh, I'm very excited. I've got a great team together, and they're so behind everything that I do, and we all talked about it with my sponsors, my family, and the my team members, racing team members, and everybody's excited to go back to defend that title, and then we'll fit in the NHRA races where we can.
I'm glad to hear that, because I think the NMCA, it's something that they can be proud of, in my opinion. That one of the stars, a guy who has, there oftentimes there's this notion that there's lesser competition in the PDRA, or lesser competition in the Midwest Drag Racing Series, or lesser competition in the NMCA. And I think it's just fantastic that you had to go out there and go toe to toe with all these cats in the Extreme Pro Mod division, fought a really tough battle to end up as world champion. But it's good for the NMCA to have you come back and defend that crown. But I will say that it piques my curiosity that you're talking about doing a little bit of dabbling in the NHRA. I'm aware that you have another car, I believe a late model Camaro. Will we see it just at a handful of big events, I guess, for the NHRA, like maybe the U.S. Nationals, or when they're out in your neck of the woods out on the East Coast in Carolina?
Well, not necessarily. I've never been one that judged where I was going to go by the distance from home. W- w- our first NHRA race this year will probably be Vegas, so that'd be the furthest one from home. But
How cool is it that you're
that's
going to make your debut at the race that is the furthest away from home? There are a whole bunch of people in the NHRA world right now jumping up and down, because that's huge news, man. I mean, I've actually been concerned, Chip, that that the car count in Vegas could be problematic with, the points kind of being not buttoned up, but it being kind of grouped up there at the top. You wonder, like, man, how many cars are they're gonna have? But man, Chip King's coming from freaking North Carolina. That's incredible. Thank you.
Well, I've done that in a past season before I waited around to near about the end of the year to show up. But it's I really like it over there, and I really have missed it. But the older you get, the 8th mile is a lot of fun. Also,
How much of the
I used
safety
to think
factor plays into it?
well, I'm very adamant on the safety side of things as far as how my cars are set up, and I spend a lot of time on remounting seat belts and moving things around and whatnot. So I'm not that concerned with the safety side of the 1/4 mile to the 8th mile. And actually, it used to be, I felt like I was only halfway there when I got to the 8th mile. It was ridiculous to lift. So, um, you know, I'm not really that concerned with that. But the parts attrition is probably the biggest factor difference. You definitely use a lot more parts up when you run 1/4 mile.
What do you what do you make of the rumor that NHRA is considering allowing screw type superchargers into Pro Mod for 2022? Do you think that's a good move?
I personally don't think that's a good move for the sheer fact we've already got so many power adders, and the screw has definitely been a very dominant power adder in the past, and I'm afraid I'm afraid it would hurt car count to a certain extent, even though there can be the argument that there are more screw cars out there that would or could show up, but you have all the safety pieces in place that NHRA require, from the tunnel to the fireproofing front end and the one to net and the plates under seats, just things of that nature that a lot of those guys that run 8th mile may not be willing to make. All those updates to show up. So I don't know that it would really help car count. It could possibly hurt it.
Looking through the lens of sitting out from NHRA competition thus far in 2021, what's been your take on this Pro Charger situation? I mean, you did dabble in the twin turbo deal for a little while, but you've been a blower sticking through the hood Pro Mod guy for pretty much since day one, right? So what's your take on the Pro Charger thing and how that is all kind of transpired in NHRA competition this year? We saw them with a huge advantage. NHRA's made something like 4 rule changes here this season. What's your stance on that combination?
Well, I think when you were talking about lack of help earlier, I'm not sure this applies, but I just don't think NHRA had got a really good look at it. I don't know if they didn't have enough help to look at it or just had some false information. Not sure what happened there, but I don't think they really got a good look at it and really studied it. And it's unfortunately has really shown that it's way more of a power advantage than what it was believed to be in the past. And us blower guys, we've been around, and the nitrous guys, got to give them credit. We've been around for 20 plus years, 22, 23 years, and we've developed. I've spent a ton of money developing engines and combinations and whatnot. And for a combination to come out in the first few years and be so dominant, not that those guys hadn't done their research, but it shouldn't be able to happen that way.
I mean, can you speak to that a little bit, Chip? I'm going to go over we actually have plenty of time. One of the things that has always surprised me a couple of years ago, and forgive me, I can't remember exactly everybody that you introduced me to, but I swung by your pits a couple of years ago. I believe I was begging you to come to Denver, if I remember correctly, but I swung by your pits and you were introducing me to a handful of like some NASCAR guys, because I don't know that people maybe recognize the level of development that's at play, even in NHRA Pro Mod. I think a lot of times when we talk about research and development, fans believe that's kind of exclusive to Funny Car or exclusive to Pro Stock, but there's a lot of guys that have invested heavily in their own engine programs, different cylinder heads, different superchargers. Can you take us through a little bit of the work that you've done to refine your supercharged program in Pro Modified competition?
Oh yeah, I've been in a development agreement with Joe Hornick Enterprises for
That's it.
Oh gosh, probably the last 8 years or so. Actually, I met up, I made contact with him when I was running my turbo cars because of some valve train issues, and we started talking and working together on the Hemi program. He was more of a Pro Stock and NASCAR type development person, but we started talking about the Hemis, and they really hadn't been changed since they were designed in the 60s. They were pretty much, the race Hemis were just a glorified edition, so they had a lot of valve train issues and this and that. And we started talking about fixing that and how we could fix that. And then he did some work for Jim Whiteley, and then Jason Scruggs, and it has just developed from there. And it's pretty much full time developing parts and pieces for these things. And we're not the only ones. It's Janus, and you just go right down the list of guys that have been working and developing.
And that's why it's such a backbreaker when the Pro Charger comes out and sets the national record at the first event of the year, or crushes it as they did in 2020 and 2021. So I certainly respect how hard of a pill that has been, a tough pill to swallow for all these Pro Modified guys that have been, supercharged guys that have been refining this combination for years. We had a great question in the comments here, and you touched on it briefly, but I would love to have you expound on it a little bit. What are some of the cost savings that are associated with going from quarter mile to eighth mile? I mean, there's a lot more wear and tear in that last half of the track. You're obviously turning those things a ton of RPM in NHRA competition, perhaps not so much in outlaw eighth mile racing. Can you compare and contrast? Because we have an incredible following here, and I'm so proud of these guys, but they're hardcore. They want to talk nuts and bolts, dollars and cents. I mean, how much of a savings is it going from quarter mile to eighth mile racing?
Oh gosh. This year we've, if we're quarter mile racing, it's pretty much a engine freshen up after a test session and a race. And, this year we've been able to make test sessions and races with a test session associated with each event we make it at least 3 races without going into a complete fresh enough of an engine.
So
So
over the
it's,
course of a
you
season,
know,
you're talking like it could cut it by a third.
oh yeah, it's substantially different. It just, it's each combination picks on their own set of parts, but in our combination, it's wear and tear on the pistons and so on. And it's not really the fact of the fuel system or whatever. It's just the geometry and the dynamics of it all. It does take a beating because it's not really accelerating that hard through high gear like it is through the lower gears. So it's kind of lugging more. So it just, that's my opinion of why it's a little harder on the engines. Plus the RPMs, like you said, and it's running for a couple of more seconds at full tilt. So it's definitely going to be a little harder on it. But you know, we basically run the same engines, eighth mile or quarter mile. We just don't have to work on them as often on the
Which
eighth
is
mile.
well
So
received by anybody that's ever gone drag racing, right? I mean, it's one thing just to get there and do all the things that you have to do, let alone to do it while having engine troubles or having to freshen this thing up. Mike, I've kind of cut my boy here, the co-host of the show, completely out of this conversation. Mike, do you got anything that you want to throw at Chip real quick?
I really don't. I promised Chip yesterday when we did our technical test that he wasn't going to get any controversial questions or anything, and we kind of went back on that promise. So I'm glad we talked about the rules. I think that's some great insight from Chip as far as the progression of the Pro Charger combination and the way that came in versus how the turbos were introduced to the class and possibly the way they'll introduce the screw blown combination. So I think that's good insight. We're talking about it every week almost. And so to hear it from someone that's been out there for 20 years and developing these combinations, I think that sort of validates some of the thoughts that we've had about it.
Considering that, 20 multi-decade involvement that you've had in Pro Modified, what's your stance on just where the class kind of sits as a whole? I mean, do you look at this with a little bit of like a proud papa perspective? I mean, obviously you weren't as intimately involved with the NHRA series as you have been historically in 2021, but you've been a big part of this for a long, long time. You've brought sponsors to the table. You guys have sponsored events in the past via DreamWorks there on the wall behind you. I mean, are you proud of where the class has arrived? Because it's NHRA Pro Mod, for all intents and purposes, I believe is the final frontier for fast door slammer drag racing. How much personal pride do you have in where the class has arrived, Chip?
well, I was talking to some people about it this weekend. A lot of people don't know the history, but I introduced the Hemi into Pro Mod competition, the original Hemi, and nowadays you hardly see anything but a Hemi. People question my sanity when I brought the Hemi in, but a Hemi was always a dominant force, kind of like Screwblower's always been a dominant force. So, it was a natural thing that when they allowed Hemi, Indy Cylinder heads approached me and said, "Let's do this," and that's how the Hemi got in there. And then, so yeah, I've been on the ground floor of several things. I was the first guy to really start making my own bodies when I started doing the Charger and the Daytona. So I get to, I feel pretty good about the fact I helped shape a lot of this. And we even laughed at the valve size rule they have for the supercharged Hemi was a late night discussion with Bill Bader in the tower when he wasn't going to allow a billet Hemi head at Rockingham and probably 2001. Like, hey, Bill, don't disallow it. Why? What's the problem? He said, "Oh, they say you're going to have huge valves." I'm like, "Something. Just limit the valve size," and it's been in the rule book ever since. So I do laugh at things and say, I had a lot to do with that. I had a lot.
You really did, Chip. I mean, I honestly think that it's understated, and I apologize for that, to be honest, because I think, our role in the media, I do think you deserve. The thing that sticks out to me as having promoted races, and kind of that's been the backbone of my existence for a long time, is your continual support of these events is so significant, right? I mean, you were there at the first ever NHRA national event, or excuse me, Pro Mod exhibition, all the way through to the class becoming considered a professional category. I mean, you've seen it from start to finish, and it's really impressive. And I hope you know that there's a whole lot of us that love this stuff, that appreciate that commitment and the countless dollars you've spent. Before we let you go, Chip, and this is a great question here in the comments on YouTube, and I want to thank everybody. We've got a hell of a following on YouTube today. It's making a big difference. I appreciate you guys being a part of the conversation. Keep this stuff coming. Your comments and your involvement is like oxygen to us. JT, I'm actually thinking about the turbo question. Darth Sniper is asking us, as someone who's raced a turbo car in the past, Chip, what do you think could be done to bring that combination back? I think it's something that we're sorely lacking out there. We've got all these combinations. There's like 5-6 different variations of a Pro Mod car you can run in NHRA right now. What needs to happen to get those turbo cars back into the mix?
Well, I think and again, this is an opinion, and I'm gonna probably get slaughtered for this.
That's what we're here for, brother. That's what we're here for.
That's that's okay. I think that they had some a little bit of tomfoolery going on when they kept lowering the boost limits, but the cars kept running just as fast until maybe it was discovered there were certain ways to make hoses leak and fittings leak and things of that nature. So by the point they got the boost limit so low with this, once that was found out, it was really no way they could run. And this is my opinion again. So now they're going to have to go back and give them some boost back and some things like that, because just from the outside looking in, those things caused the limits to go so low they really couldn't run without having leaks and things that created an ability to put a little more boost in there. So I think they're going to have to give them some stuff back. Because
is there an argument to be made for putting a smaller turbo on them, Chip? The NHRA standardized Pro Mod is an 88 millimeter turbo, I believe, which will make tons of boost. The NHRA has them limited down to the low 30s, I think 31 or 33 pounds of boost, something crazy. Is there an argument to be made, you think, for putting a smaller turbo on the cars that are kind of more at their peak boost levels without an electronic boost controller?
I think there could be some possibilities there, in the same way with the Pro Charger. It's a smaller one could definitely, it's like a restrictor plate, and lack of other words. But a lot of times though, the bigger one isn't real happy when you start choking it down like that. So they may run faster with small ones. That's the risk. That's the risk in doing that. That's
efficiency plays a role in it, right?
That's to your point, though. That's kind of what we're looking for, right? We're looking to give them something back to bring them up to where the other combinations are. So I think that would be the way to go.
Same deal with, when we went from 20 over to 16 to 14, everyone's, oh God, they're never running that. Well, guess what? They've run faster because,
and it's interesting. To that point, I remember trying to, when I was in the midst of promoting the Drag Illustrated World Series of Pro Mod, our 3-year stint out at Bandimere Speedway with the biggest Pro Mod drag race in the history of the known universe. Something I'm super proud of, but one of the things that my argument to any blower racer was me just trying to I'm a salesman, man. That's what I do. So I roll into someone's pit and they're like, oh, we can't run out there. And I'm like, no, spin that thing 20 over. We're going to give you overdrive. And they're like, it doesn't run any better at 20 over. It runs worse, generates more heat. It doesn't help us, Wes. Like, I appreciate your effort to, but that ain't enough. And it was kind of realizing that, because I do think for the, maybe the uninitiated, you go, hey, spin the blower faster, it's going to run better. They've spent so much time, the Al Billises of the world, the Mike Janices of the world, the Chuck Fords of the world, and the list goes on, have spent so much time perfecting that thing, right, at 16 over or 14 and a half over or whatever, that speeding it up doesn't help. So it's a really interesting thing, and I hadn't completely thought about that, because that would be our luck, right? That we put 72 millimeter turbos on these Pro Mods and they go out and run 550s.
Yeah, that's the risk. But I think they got to give them something back if they want them to come back and race, and they need the turbo cars, they do, and they need the blower cars. They need the nitrous cars. I'm not sure they need the Pro Charger cars, but that's just an opinion.
Oh, that was great, man. A little bit of real Chip showed up, man. Thank you for that. And Chip, thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy man. We appreciate you. The floor is yours, brother. I know you got some. I was going to get you to tell me this story about your wife. We have 2 things that Chip deserves to get to tell us. I know you've got a bunch of sponsors that support your program, but we also got to talk about that red Mustang. Is that thing up for sale, or what's going to happen to are we going to get you back in a Mopar full time, or what?
Well, we do have a new 70 Charger being built at Jerry Haas Race Cars right now. The Jerry Bickle 70 Mustang is a proven winner, and a few people approached me about buying it, and my wife said, "Are you a flipping idiot? That car is winning races. What? You've lost your damn mind." And so, like, okay, that one's off the table. But there's we're very happy with that car, and it works very well. It's worked very well over the years. And Terry Coyle, my tuner, he's very acclimated with that car because obviously he tuned it for Terry Liggett. And that was kind of part of my reason for buying that car from Liggett was I had Coyle helping me, and I said, Liggett decides to go back racing. He's got a car. He's liable to want to take Coyle with him. So I said, fix that. Let's buy the car. So that's that was part of my motivation. The rest is it's a really good car. So that being said, Justin Carmack has come in and taken over and kind of managing the team now. So I have more time to do what I do at work and more time to enjoy racing. And that's made a big difference in the organization. He's done a great job and putting the right people and the right things together.
Well, that's what we're looking for, Chip, man. Yeah. We want Chip King having a damn good time going drag racing. I tell you what, buddy, you keep doing burnouts, winning world championships, and we'll keep telling the world about it. Thank you so much for taking the time on a Wednesday afternoon to talk with us and everybody else watching along on the internet. We appreciate you, brother.
Hey, I've got a 18-year-old daughter that's supposedly watching from class in Costa Rica right now. So she said if I didn't give her a shout out, I'd have to pay the price. So
you have to give her a shout out.
Hi, Bella.
Hi, Bella. Mike, we're all giving you a shout out.
Hey, Bella.
So
we're all giving you a shout out.
Hopefully my son's listening and my sponsors, DreamWorks, and I really appreciate my family, my whole team, all the guys that sacrificing their families to make us be able to do this because they really won the championship this year. They had a mediocre driver at times that happened to let his finger slip off the button at the right time a few times to win in the right situations and a few times at the wrong time. But at the end of the day, we got a championship wrapped up out of it. So everybody did a great job. I'm just going to mention them all real quick. Then I know you guys got to go. But Terry Coyle, Travis Eubanks, Robbie Matthews, Eli Moore, Al Day, the truck driver, and then obviously all our parts suppliers we've mentioned previously. So thanks so much to them. And a special thanks to Justin Carmack for putting so much effort into making this all come together.
Much deserved, brother, man. It's a family affair, a team deal, dude. We recognize that, and I'm glad you took the time to honor those dudes because Mike and I both kind of come from we can speak from the perspective of a crew guy, the dude that's putting out the awning or putting on top of the trailer in the 200-degree sun, and those are guys that normally don't get their due. So thank you for recognizing those folks.
We didn't run as well as we wanted to at Indy, and I told them all, I said, y'all know you're my crew for life, but if we don't run better next run, I'm going to start picking one at a time to kill. So let's go.
Oh, that's some North Carolina showing up.
Yeah.
Actually, I stole that from Roy Hill.
That makes sense now.
You know what? We get Roy Hill feeling better. He's got we got to talk to Roy Hill on here one of these.
Got to give Roy a shout out.
Yeah, I talked to him on Sunday, and he was elated. I said, Roy, one more of your students has won a world championship.
Wow. Good deal. Hope he's on the mend.
Did he sound like he was on the mend, Chip?
Oh, yeah. He's very excited. He's ready to get well and get back out. Yeah, he sounded very good.
Good. Well, we're looking forward to seeing him, and I'm looking forward to seeing you soon, brother. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
See you later, Bella.
Take care, Chip.
Talk to you guys. Hopefully.